Hey YouTube, Do-It-Yourself Junkie 369, and today I'm doing a video on how to clean your Glock pistol. I have a couple new gun owners. They bought Glocks and they wanted to know how to clean these correctly. So we'll go ahead, bring the camera over here for my point of view and show you how to do this the correct way. Okay, now most of the stuff you're going to need is probably in the gun case that came with your purchase. In there you have a lock. These are actually pretty useless in the grand scheme of things. I mean, they'll keep somebody who's not really determined away from your firearm. Also inside the box you'll have manuals of all kinds of stuff. The manual probably actually tells you how to do this. Most importantly though, you'll have a bore brush, which is clipped in right here at the top of the box. And then in the lid, it's really hard to spot, there's a cleaning rod located in there. And that screws into the bore brush and has a slot for patches. And then there's this assist loader that I will go over how to use probably at the end of the video if you're interested. It's really helpful for getting that last round in the magazine that's sometimes difficult to do. So I actually have quite a few of these brushes laying around the house. This one appears to be 40, this one appears to be 9. There's just a slight dimensional difference between the two. And today I happen to be cleaning a 40 and a 9, so it'll be good to have that. Stuff that's not in the box that you'll need is something to clean with. I like using break-free CLP. This is a spray bottle of it. I actually prefer the stuff that is just in a normal squeeze bottle. But at the time I bought this, that's all I could find. And CLP stands for Cleaner Lubricant Preservative, so it actually is the only thing you need. There's other people that clean with different stuff. That's just what I prefer. Same thing for lubrication. People use different stuff. I know my dad really likes to use this Tetra gun grease, and I've noticed a few of the newer Glocks come with grease on the rails instead of just a liquid lubricant. I like having a towel that you don't care about, especially if you're doing this on the dining room table. You'll want to put something down, probably maybe a towel and some newspapers just in case, so you don't ruin your table. You'll need some cleaning patches. These can be picked up wherever you bought your firearm, but you can also get it at Walmart. It's one of the things Walmart still sells. And I like having just a rag that doesn't really leave any lint or anything behind, or not too bad. This is just a shop towel that I have. Almost anything will work. And then I also like having this nylon brush. You don't have to go out and buy one of these specifically. You can use just a toothbrush, especially if you go to the dentist a lot. They give you one every time. And I don't always like the one they give you. So that's it. Those you definitely need something to clean and lube with. You probably definitely want something to protect whatever surface you're cleaning on. You definitely want some patches. The brush and this rag are almost optional. You could really get away with just the patches. It's just that you'll use more patches, or you can use some paper towels instead of the rag. So first step is you got to remember to treat every firearm as if it was loaded. So we want to make sure these are unloaded. So you're going to eject the magazine and then cycle the action. If you're cycling the action and rounds keep coming out, you forgot to drop the magazine. That's one of the most common ways that people end up with a negligent discharge, is they don't drop the magazine first. Just for now, we'll go ahead. You want to do both a visual check in the chamber and in the magazine, while keeping this pointed away from you and away from others. Just to show you, it's the same on every Glock. You drop the magazine, cycle that action 3 or 4 times, and then you don't have to lock it back. I just am for the video. To do that, you press up on the slide release so that it locks, and physically and visually check the chamber and the magazine to make sure that no ammo is going to be introduced. Take any ammo that you have and place it anywhere else. Don't leave it on the table that you're cleaning on. It always seems like every time I hear about somebody accidentally shooting themselves, it's while cleaning their firearms. And if you remove the ammo from this process, that shouldn't happen. So ammo, like, don't even have it on the same table that you're cleaning on. And we've checked the firearms. So next step is the disassembly. So to do that, the slide needs to be forward, and you have to pull the trigger. This is one thing that people do not like about Glocks, but if you're safe about it, it's a non-issue. So just make sure, I usually rack the slide a few times, point it somewhere that I know is not going to be an issue if there is a round in here, and you pull the trigger. And if you store your firearms empty, this is the step that you'll start on. So now you can see both those triggers are pulled and the guns are ready for disassembly. The next part is you're going to have to pull this slide back just a little bit while using your free hand to pull down on this slide lock. And it's on both sides, and you need to grip it on both sides and pull straight down. And so to do that, you want to just barely move the slide back about 1/4 of an inch. And that's basically pulling pressure off of this. So as soon as you have it back far enough, it will be able to be pulled down. If you pull it back too far, which is about an inch, it will reset the trigger, and you do not want that. So just about 1/4 of an inch, and usually I put my thumb around the back of the grip and then wrap my hand over the top of the slide and do it just like this. And then release this while you're holding this lock in the down position. You just release the slide and it slides forward. Again, short pistol is no different. You just pull back a little bit, hold this down, and release the slide forward. Now, next step on any Glock pistol is you pull out the recoil spring. And now on this, the short pistols are going to have this dual spring. As far as I know, all the larger pistols have this single spring, unless the newer models have changed that. I haven't looked at one that closely. But you want to pay attention to which direction that spring goes into the weapon. That way you make sure you get it back in there. And then to remove the barrel, you lift up on it a little bit to unlock it. So the way this works is it's locked closed for firing, and to unlock it has to slide down, and that unlocks it. So you're basically just lifting it, sliding it forward, and then pulling it out. So from the top it's going to be a slight lift, and then pull out. Same thing on the small pistol. And it's ever so slight. You lift, slide it a little bit forward so you can lift the rest of the way to clear the back of the slide, and then lift it out there. Now for cleaning, you're going to want to take your oil and scrub. Like this one I've fired quite a bit, so there's a lot of carbon buildup around where the muzzle is. This one's not so dirty, so it doesn't have that. But you can see that discoloration there. That's all carbon buildup. You want to get down in the slide there. You can see that's quite dirty in there. So definitely around where the chamber is, that's going to be dirty, and up here it's going to be dirty. The big thing you do not want to do is get lubricant down into this firing pin channel. So not in this hole and not down into this channel to get in there. What will happen is it'll build up in there, collect dust and dirt, and then your firing pin will get clogged. The channel that your firing pin runs in will get clogged up, and you'll have to either take it to a gunsmith or figure out how to take that firing pin out of there and clean that channel out. So usually what I do is take my toothbrush, put some oil on it, and scrub in those areas. And you don't have to do this every time you shoot. Glocks are fairly reliable, especially even dirty. And if you do excessive cleaning, you'll prematurely wear the finish on your firearm. And I'm talking like a lot of cleaning. I mean, now granted, if you shoot like a box of ammunition a year and you clean after that, it's not going to be much of an issue. But if you clean your weapon like every time you go out, and let's say you go out every weekend and shoot 10 rounds and clean it, that's going to put a lot of wear on the finish. And so that could wear it out. And right now I'm just getting in these areas where the powder likes to get into, and then breaking it up with the cleaner and the brush, and then going in and wiping it down with the towel. The other option is you put some on your towel, get that wet, or your rag, and you go in there and scrub it with that if you don't have the toothbrush. And basically all that all the areas that I scrubbed, I'm trying to get all that CLP back out of there because it's loaded up with the carbon and unburnt powder that I just scrubbed off the weapon. And one of the tough places to get into is the track that the lower receiver rails fit into, because it's fairly narrow and tight space. So that's really hard to get into. And then one thing you can do while you have it apart is make sure your firing pin, this is a firing pin block. If you depress that, the firing pin should shake in there. You can just barely hear it. So you want that to happen. If it doesn't, while you're pressing this down so it can move freely, if you don't hear that rattle, then there's probably dirt that's starting to clog up that channel on the firing pin, and you'll want to correct that. Otherwise, there might be enough drag that your firing pin won't strike the primer hard enough to set the cartridge off. So check that real quick. Other thing is, with the firing pin out, you can look at it, make sure there's no damage to it. If there is, it should be fairly obvious damage, like part of it is missing, not a smooth surface. So look at that, and then when you pull it back, this should pop up under spring pressure and there'll be a click like that, and that means your block there isn't clogged up and is functioning properly. The other thing, you can look at your extractor here. The other thing you can look at is your extractor here and make sure that that's not chipped or broken. And there should be some spring pressure to it. You can move it. And it shouldn't really happen, but this piece right here grabs the round out of the magazine. I guess you can check that, make sure it's not chipped or broken somehow. And you know, just make sure your sights are on there and nothing looks out of place. And as you can see, we've gotten that carbon off of there. It was that easy. It's probably worth wiping down the spring. You can spray it if you want to with cleaner. Make sure that's not dirty. And same thing with the barrel. And this one, just spray some CLP on it. Wipe down the outside of it. And make sure you get back here where the chamber is and where everything locks up. That's going to be one of the places that gets really dirty. And then you can take your brush, it just should screw in to that rod that comes into the kit. There we go. Put some CLP on that brush. Doesn't have to be a lot. And then scrub the outside of the barrel, or the inside of the barrel. And should only have to do that a couple times. One thing with Glocks is they have a special type of rifling. It's like polygonal, and it really doesn't build up a whole lot of dirt on it. And then you just take a patch after you remove your brush, put it on there, and then run that through the barrel. And as you can see, it picked up some dirt, but not a lot. This is not what I would call a lot of dirt. And you can even use that patch to kind of clean off the muzzle there. and to clean back here where your feed ramps are. Which we picked up quite a bit more dirt cleaning back in those areas than what we did running the patch down the bore. Just because that was dirty, usually I'll do another one and hopefully it'll come out clean. Still a little bit of dirt in there, not much. We'll go ahead and run this patch through one more time and see if we can get it to come out any cleaner. And that's a little bit, you can just see just barely a little bit of dirt there from running it through that barrel, but that's pretty good. I consider that clean enough. Now I will say, if you look right there, that's a whole bunch of carbon right there. See how it's coming up when I scrape it with my finger? So we don't want to leave that. So that's one area where, like that's a lot of carbon and that's caked on there pretty good. So we'll use the brush to brush that and break that carbon up. And there's some right here on this edge as well. And just that little bit of brushing, you can see that the carbon is all gone. Now, with the outside plastic of the pistol, it's going to be dirty down here from the muzzle. So give that a wipe. You can see the discoloration in there, the dirt and the carbon built up. So we'll just wipe that off. It's just, I mean, it should not really stick to the plastic. It should just come right off. And then areas that I'll probably hit with some cleaner and clean are these metal pieces, and scrub those with the toothbrush. And then probably definitely wipe down your slide catch and then your basically your trigger assembly here. And down in here is going to be really dirty because when the slide first opens up and all the blowback is coming out, that's where it is going to. And you can see that metal's lightened up in color quite a bit. There was a good amount of carbon on it. And then I just try to get as much CLP back off of this as I can. There's really not anything in there that needs protecting because it's mostly plastic. And then most of the pieces are either coated or we'll get some lubricant here in a second. Okay, so that's pretty clean. We'll get down, kind of wipe out the magazine well, make sure nothing's in there going to cause problems later. Now, as far as lubricating this firearm, usually I put lube here on these two rails and the back two rails, because that's where the slide slides. So those rails are what the slide's riding on as it recoils. And then the other thing that you'll need to lubricate is back here, this little piece sticking up. If you only have like, and this only requires like 1 drop of oil in each space, not even a full drop, just real light, almost dry lubrication. But right back in here, where there's pieces sticking up, the trigger, as you're pulling it, comes back and hits that piece and is forced down to release the firing pin. You can see it right there start to drop down. And so that's forcing that trigger bar down, and that's what you want to lube, besides the two rails. And then I usually do, oops, wrong barrel. I usually do a light coating on the top of on the outside of this barrel, just about anywhere, because that's where metal to metal contact may be happening. And usually to keep the amount of lube light, I spray some on a patch and then wipe with that patch, and it'll put just a sheen on there. And this is one area where having COP that is not in a spray bottle is easier to deal with, trying to get like just one little half a drop down into that area. And what I did there is there was some dripping off the end of that straw, so I put it in there. And that's all that weapon needs. So for reassembly, you stick the barrel in first and then let it drop down, slide back. And then next you put the spring in. Usually the end with this huge metal disc goes to the rear, and you want to make sure that it is sitting in that semicircle cutout. If it's not quite in there, bad stuff might not happen, but it could happen. So make sure that's in there. And then you just line up the slots with the rails. And pull it to the rear, and then it should click. And now your weapon is assembled and ready to go. And usually what I do next is a safety function check. So the Glock safeties are all internal. So if you cock it, if you pull that trigger, it'll go off. Well, as long as you don't depress this center bar, the trigger shouldn't travel to the rear. Now you can pull it, and you'll hear a click, and hold the trigger to the rear. So it fired, so it functions. Now pull the slide and release, still holding the trigger to the rear. When you release the trigger, you should hear another click, and that is the trigger reset. In case you didn't hear it, right there. And really, when you're firing, that is all the farther you have to move your finger for that reset. So really, there's no reason to keep going all the way back out here. And the last thing that I like to check, and you probably won't have to worry about this, especially if you're a new firearms owner and have just purchased a brand new Glock, but that recoil spring does eventually wear out. And what you want to do is hold the firearm up at a 45-degree angle, empty, pull the slide to the rear, and then slowly release it. and it should be pulled forward by that recoil spring all the way into battery. So if it gets hung up right here, then you need to replace that recoil spring. And this one's not hanging up. As soon as I let go of it, it goes back into battery without any force. And that's it. That's how you clean the firearm. I'll go ahead and clean this one, even though it's not real dirty, but it's the same steps. This one's a little bit different. This black plastic piece here, disc, goes to the rear, and the front is just this simple rod so that it can fit through the end of the slide. But that black plastic piece still needs to go down inside that cutout. And everything functions right, so it's put back together correctly. And that's how you clean your Glock handgun and lubricate it. This one's a little bit different. This black plastic piece here, disc, goes to the rear, and the front is just this simple rod so that it can fit through the end of the slide. But that black plastic piece still needs to go down inside that cutout. And everything functions right, so it's put back together correctly. And that's how you clean your Glock handgun and lubricate it. Okay, there you have it. That's how to clean and properly lubricate your Glock pistol. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please think about hitting that thumbs up button, helping me out. And feel free to subscribe. Later on I'm going to cover a lot more in depth, basically everything I know about firearms, from terminology, I've already have quite a few videos on conditions of weapons. Basically that is, there's condition 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that describes what a weapon's like. So like condition 4 is chamber empty, magazine not installed. Condition 3 is magazine installed. Condition 2 doesn't really apply to the Glock. And then condition 1 is like loaded, safety on, ready to go. And that helps quickly, especially during training situations, quickly communicate how your weapon needs to be set up. So that's really important to know. And then in there I also covered how to field strip. And again, safety function check, just like I did in this video. But I've done it for Glocks, I've done it for 1911s. I'm going to do it for probably a couple different revolvers. Basically any firearm that I can get my hands on, I'm going to do one of those videos to help people out, especially since how to field strip is something easily forgotten if you don't do it often. And then proper terminology, as I said, and even up to how to shoot, the 7 fundamentals of marksmanship and how they apply to pistols, rifles, bows, like shotguns, and cover different ways of shooting and what I feel are the correct ways that build off of those fundamentals, and different drills you can do. So hopefully you subscribe so you can see those videos coming around when when they come through. I will say there's a lot of stuff that goes on my channel, so don't expect every video to be a firearms related video. And if that's going to bother you, make sure you do not hit the bell icon, because you won't want to get email notifications every time I upload something, especially since I do a lot of airplane related content and building content. If you want to see how to use this thing, keep watching. That will be up next in the video, but I'm going to end it right here and then just throw that on as kind of a bonus. So thanks for watching. Hope that you enjoyed the video and come back to watch more. As sort of a bonus, I did say I would show how to use this thing. Basically, there's a tab in this that goes to the rear of the magazine. And like here's the front of the magazine where the projectiles are going to sit in there facing this way and feed out. And you can tell that because here's a large opening, and then back here you have what's usually known as the feed lips, and those are going to hold the round, and as it's pushed forward, it's pushed out from under those and allowed to travel upward into the chamber. So front, back of the magazine. Other way to know on Glocks is the back is usually squared off, the front's rounded, and the back has these holes that tell you how many rounds you have in there. If you can see a round there, that's the number of rounds. So like if that hole has a round showing, you have 5 rounds left in your magazine. But anyway, giant cutout opening goes to the front and slides over the top of the magazine, and that finger inside of it pushes down the magazine follower. So to load a round, you push down the magazine follower, slide the round up, slide the round in, and push it all the way back up against that finger, and that's going to put it under those feed lips. Then you move this out of the way and slide it the rest of the way to the rear, like so. And you just repeat that over and over again. And basically what's that doing is it's giving you some mechanical leverage to push down on these rounds. So especially as you fill up the magazine, that spring inside is going to compress more and more, and this is going to get harder to do. And so this provides you something where you can use your whole hand and just press it down into the table if you have weak fingers and aren't able to, especially on the last round where the spring is really compressed, if you're not able to load a magazine normally. Normally what I do is I take the round, hold it here, push down, and then drag back with my thumb. But that requires some amount of strength versus this being much easier.